in a physical form. That takes a lot of power. I've got to run. Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night. Listen to this one, folks. Dear Art, in 1975, I was stationed on the old USS Roosevelt aircraft carrier. We were on a med cruise in port in Sicily. While on leave, I went to the USO to call home. And my mother answered the phone and began crying as soon as she realized it was me. She told me, "Do not go back to the ship when it goes back to sea again." She was almost hysterical about it. She made me promise that I would not go no matter what might be done to me, even if it meant a court-martial. I was the supply officer's yeoman. So I made arrangements to fly to Naples, Italy, which was to be our next stop in 7 days. My job would be to set up water and garbage barges for the carrier when it arrived. My berthing area on the ship was all the way forward, just below the cat launchers. While the USS Roosevelt was going through the Messina Straits between Italy and Sicily, she collided with a Liberian wheat freighter. We hit it broadside. My berthing area collapsed the sleeping area, which had been pushed into it. The collision occurred about 2 a.m., and I would have been asleep at that time, and I would have very likely been killed. When the ship arrived in Naples, I couldn't believe what had happened. Mothers do know what's best, and it's signed simply Jerry. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Art, this is Forrest calling from Denver.
Hello, Forrest.
How are you?
Fine.
This is another Colorado law enforcement ghost story.
Did you heard the one I read?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this one is, the officer will remain anonymous as well as the agency, if that's okay.
That's fine.
A couple of years ago, a veteran officer in Colorado was on a routine night patrol on a kind of a misty night. And he was driving along a road he knew very well, hadn't been in that area for many years. He saw a gentleman walking or standing alongside the road. Well, it was a little bit unusual because it was in a rather desolate area of Colorado. He pulled over, did a routine field interrogation on the fellow. He turned out to have no ID, gave him a name, whatever the name was, it didn't matter, and he had no reason to hold him. Not having any weapons on him or anything like that, so he just let him go.
Sure.
Yeah, he didn't necessarily search him, but he had no reason to hold him or act any further.
Understood.
So, about 20 or 30 miles down the road, as he was driving along, he spots another fellow standing alongside the road. This guy knew the area real well. He did not turn back on himself or get lost. He pulls over. Here we go again. The guy comes over to the car. The officer rolls down the opposite window, and the guy looks inside the patrolman's car, and he realizes it's the same guy. He looks at him. Is kind of taken aback, decides, hey, what's up with this? Gets out of his car, turns the lights on, walks around the car, proceeds to want to interrogate this fellow further, and he's just gone. He's just not there.
True story?
Yes. I have it on very good authority. Yes.
I appreciate your telling it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is but one of many in law enforcement. And as you know, they work in all hours. Law enforcement goes on 24 hours a day. And so they're out there in the dark hours. And things happen. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
This is Bill from Savage, Minnesota.
Hi, Bill.
KSTP.
You bet.
I had an experience about 5 years ago. I went to a housewarming party from acquaintance at work, and during the party I went into the restroom, and I was standing there, and just this cold shiver came over me, and then a voice in my head, wasn't my voice, is screaming, "Get out."
Really? I would take that at face value myself.
I left.
There you go.
Okay. And also another friend of mine who grew up in the area and some other kids that I hunt with every year. About 20 years prior to that, one of the guys that I hunted with, his mother committed suicide in that house.
Uh-huh.
With a gun in the bathroom.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know what it is about that kind of death, but everybody out there who's ever contemplating such a thing should bear in mind these sorts of stories. These spirits seem to be caught or linger or don't know to go on. I don't know what occurs to them.
Yeah, it was the strangest thing because I questioned another friend. I've never told this guy about it, but I questioned another friend who grew up in the area, and he told me all about it. And it's like, I never believed in that kind of stuff either, but I firmly believe these days.
Sure. I appreciate the call, sir.
I love your show.
Thank you. Art, in 1971, I was working for a company that managed apartment units in San Jose, California. My job was to repair and maintain them. There was one apartment building in East San Jose where tenants were constantly complaining about one of the units on the second floor. All the people who lived on that floor said that people were constantly coming and going from the apartment in question at all hours of the night. They also said there were people chanting and screaming came from the unit late at night. The police had responded to the address many times, but no charges were ever proven. At last, my company succeeded in evicting the tenants, and a work order was issued to prepare the apartment for new tenants. So, the next morning, I responded to the unit to inspect, repair, issue cleaning orders, or whatever was needed to rent the unit. As I was trying to open the door, a kind old black lady from down the hall came over and said to me, "Son, don't go into that apartment before you bring a priest to bless it. That place is evil." As I opened the door, I beheld an eerie sight. The walls were painted black, the windows covered with thick, dark cloth. All the light bulbs were placed with red-tinted bulbs. In the center of the living room, the carpet had been ripped out, and a pentagram painted inside a circle about 8 feet in diameter was in the center of the room. In other rooms, there were altars of some kind, and the remains of small animals that had been tortured and killed recently. After the police had been called, made their reports and left, I rented a dumpster and cleaned the place out. As I was hauling all this carnage out of the building, a man approached me and told me not to defile a sacred place, or I would be in great danger. Not being a believer, I told him unless he disappeared real quick, he'd be the one in great danger. After a long and disgusting day, I went home. Not wanting to upset my wife, told her nothing of the events of that day. The evening, a normal one. Later that night, we went to bed. At about 2 a.m., I was awakened by my dog going crazy and my wife screaming at the top of her lungs. As I sat up in bed, I felt the room was freezing cold. There were 2 pillars of blue light that went from the floor at the foot of our bed to the ceiling. The pillars were pulsating blue light and shimmering in the dark. My wife began to pray. I screamed. Several minutes later, the lights faded away. The next day, I contracted the rest of the job and never responded to that address again. And I'll withhold the name. West of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Yeah, what's that, Art?
Hi.
Hey, I'm Jose from El Cajon, California.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
KFMB, right?
Yeah, San Diego.
Uh-huh.
And my story has to do with your radio show.
My radio show?
Yeah, a couple days ago you had a guest on about Poltergeist.
Yes, I did, Brad Steiger.
Yeah, and I was listening to your show, and all of a sudden my radio turned all the way up.
Oh?
And I couldn't turn it down at all. I tried everything. I turned it off. It wouldn't.
Somebody wanted you to hear something.
Nobody, I don't know what happened. It just wouldn't shut off or anything. Just really weird. I tried to turn it down. It just wouldn't turn down. I turned it off. It finally went off a couple seconds after I turned it off. My radio usually turns off right after I turn it off stuff.
Well, There's always been something about this program.
Yeah, I just thought it was really weird about poltergeist, and all of a sudden my radio just turned all the way up by itself.
How's it been behaving since?
Perfectly fine. Works normal. I'm using it right now, so.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Take it for what it's worth. Thank you very much for the call. First.